All right, today we're looking at this, the AeroPress Premium. I've used it, I've tested it, and in this video we're going to totally go over it. We're going to compare it to the regular AeroPress. We're going to talk about who this is actually for, and we're going to see what it takes to break it. This is a big question that's been out there so that you don't have to. This press was sent to me by AeroPress. Now, full disclosure, my wife Sarah and I, we do contract media work on the side, you know, photo, video, that kind of thing. And from time to time, we've done some of this work for AeroPress, done pictures for them, videos, including for this press. Now, I'm always committed to being fully transparent about all that kind of thing. So if you ever have questions about that, just ask. As far as it comes to this video, AeroPress didn't ask me to make it, and they're seeing it at the same time you are. As always, when it comes to my reviews, they're my own. They have not been reviewed or approved by anybody else. And my first priority is always helping you make the best decisions for you. Now, before we get to the premium, a little background on AeroPress overall. This is the regular AeroPress. We call it the AeroPress Original, and these were first launched in 2005. It was developed as like a cheap, portable, affordable, and like improved coffee brewer by a fellow named Alan Adler. Coincidentally enough, this is the same guy who developed the Aerobi Frisbee. We got one of them in our backyard right now. Our kids love playing with them. The AeroPress has been through several kind of material iterations. We're going to go through those in a bit, and that lands us here today with the Glass Premium version. And the question is this actually worth getting? Now, I've always been a big fan of the AeroPress. I call it the ultimate 80-20 brewer, meaning if you put in like 20% of the cost and effort of some other methods, you're going to get like 80% plus of the result in your cup. It's super cheap. You don't need any fancy kettles, scales, any of that. You can just get this, get started, get some good coffee, and you're gonna see an immediate change in your cup. They cost about 40 bucks. They go on sale all the time. Great value. The AeroPress Clear is pretty nearly functionally identical to this one. Slightly more expensive, different look. Obviously, the colors are the same, but it's still plastic. And people have been asking for a glass or a metal AeroPress for forever. With a very quick Google search on this, I was able to turn up a post from like 2012, somebody looking for a glass AeroPress. AeroPress teased a glass version of this back in 2023 at a coffee expo. And today, here we are with this glass and metal AeroPress Premium. Not necessarily lightweight, durable, or cheap, coming in at like 150 bucks. Now, this does feel like a premium product though. It's very heavy. This glass chamber is double walled and it's hand blown, made of borosilicate glass. This bad boy is made out of aluminum and silicone. The cap down here is made out of stainless steel. Even the stir and scoop, you know, they're very heavy duty. This is metal as well, as is the scoop. Very premium feeling. The press doesn't really, even though it's double walled, feel at all like those thin, fragile double-walled coffee cups that you can get. It's quite heavy, coming in at about 780 grams with all of this assembled. And with this out, it still is over 500 grams. So it feels like a pretty beefy piece of equipment in your hands for sure. The cap, you put a filter in, and then it just kind of slips in here and twists on very much like a standard AeroPress. So I think at this point, we should probably brew a cup of coffee with it. I've got 16 grams of coffee weighed out here, and I'm just gonna grind it up. Now, I'll often rinse my AeroPress filter, even though it doesn't really have any impact on flavor. And with this one, if you do it while it's all kind of assembled onto your press here, not only will it mean you don't have to handle that really hot cap after preheating, but it's also going to warm up this chamber a little bit. So I always do the same basic recipe with an AeroPress. It works really well. I'm going to dump it in here. I've got 16 grams of coffee, and then I'm going to just fill it straight up with 250 mils of water. I kind of do this trick where I like spin it around as I'm filling it, and it's going to go right up to 250. I'm going to stir just to make sure everything is well agitated, and then I'm going to pop this plunger in and wait a few minutes. Now, you'll see when you're brewing it this way, you get a little bit of drip through. It doesn't have a huge impact on flavor. If you want to eliminate that, you can use either a double filter, which will slow down that flow a little bit. There is what's called the inverted method. We will talk about that later as well. Or you can use something called the flow control cap. Now, just while we're waiting for that 2-minute mark, a couple things here. One thing that you can notice right away is that the chamber on this AeroPress is both a little bit narrower and a little bit taller than this AeroPress. And that's because of the double-walled glass chamber makes it a little bit thicker so that this is going to be a little bit taller. This AeroPress is about 5.6 centimeters wide, and the inside of this one is about 5 centimeters on the dot. Also, the holes on the cap are a little bit more tightly spaced for the same reason. And also because of that double wall glass, you can see even when it's full of hot water, it's very easy to handle, like it doesn't get hot. So we're at about the 2-minute mark. So I'm just gonna give it a nice slow press over about 30 seconds. And I'm gonna do that very gently, and that's going to avoid pushing any really fine particulate matter through that filter. It's gonna result in theory anyways, a bit of a cleaner cup. We're just gonna go nice and slow and gentle. I saw some comments about people being a little concerned about pressing down on glass vessels with this thing. It's not an issue at all in my experience. And we're just gonna keep pressing until water stops going through. It'll hiss a little bit. And there we have our brewed coffee. Let's see how it tastes. That is a good cup of coffee. So this is a Sidra Reserve from Corvus Coffee, and I'm getting like really nice strawberry cream out of this. A little bit of like apple acidity coming in. Very good cup of coffee. Very well represented, which is exactly what I would expect from an AeroPress brew. Now, when you're ready to clean up, number one, you want to wait a couple seconds because this stainless cap, it does get pretty hot. Then you just twist it off like normal. Then you pop it into your trash bin. And you can see even there, the bottom is pretty clean. You rinse it off quickly underwater and you're more or less good to go. I did find that that filter would sometimes stick in this cap a little bit more than it would in this one. But the real question is, does the coffee actually taste any better out of this press than it does out of this one? And the answer to that is no, it doesn't. It tastes basically the same. And the reason for that is these two presses are more or less, material aside, functionally identical. They work the same, they function the same, and the coffee tastes more or less the same, which is a good thing because generally AeroPress brews taste fantastic. In my experience, changing things like your grinder, your grind size, your water temperature, the number or type of filters that you're using, they all had a much bigger impact in taste than changing between a plastic and a metal press. But hang on a minute, right? Because surely these two presses must be different. I mean, just look at them. You have this low profile plastic press. Then you have this huge honking piece of glass and metal. And you may be thinking just intuitively, like, look at that. Like, you fill that thing with hot water and it is gonna suck all the heat out of your brew. Whereas a plastic will probably be a lot more favorable in that regard. And you might be surprised to discover, I certainly was anyways, that the difference is not that big. I would fill both of these, both with boiling water and with a lower brew temperature water. I tried, a couple different temperatures, stuck a little probe in there, and they performed very closely, both in terms of like initial kind of temperature drop, as well as how they would hold the temperature over the course of a brew. This one, when I would fill it, the water temperature would tend to drop by about 10 degrees Celsius with no preheat. This one, when I would fill it, the water temperature would tend to drop from whatever the kettle was set to by like 11 to 11.5 degrees with no preheat. So very, very close in terms of initial thermal drop. And then over the course of the brew, 2.5 minutes, both of them would drop like an additional degree to degree and a half. So I was kind of surprised by that because I was expecting this one, the temperature to drop like a rock, and it just didn't. And this one also dropped more than I expected. So if you're like a super nerdy coffee person, just bear that in mind. Both of these are going to have like an initial drop in your water temperature. So you might just want to consider that when you're setting your water temperature or with how you're preheating your presses. Okay, moving on from that, we have nearly identical taste, extremely comparable performance. Let's talk about difference in material. Plastic versus glass. And this is something that is starting to become more and more of a conversation as people are becoming increasingly conscious of the effects of microplastics. Now, the very first AeroPresses were made of something called polycarbonate. And these presses, they were all made before 2009, and they contained something called BPA, which since then we have learned is not the greatest. So if you have one of those early edition presses, please stop using it. And if you happen to have an original one, it looks like this, please let me know, because there's a video that I would love to make and I don't have one of them. After that, they went through a couple years where they were made from something called copolyester, and the current ones are made out of either polypropylene like this one, or like the Clear and the Colors out of Triton. Now, both of those are considered food safe at the coffee brewing temperature for sure and above, but that doesn't eliminate the consideration of microplastics, which is essentially like little tiny microscopic pieces of plastic, you know, sort of rubbing off. And more, you are seeing people trying to eliminate plastic overall from their world to cut down on these microplastics. And it's for that reason that many people shift from products like this over more towards products like this. Now, I will say that nearly every bag of coffee that comes into this house is lined with plastic. So it's not the kind of thing that most people are able to eliminate entirely, but more and more you are seeing people trying to, you know, do what they can here. Now, glass, in addition to not, you know, creating microplastics or that type of thing, does have another quality. It's kind of fragile, which makes using the inverted method in particular with AeroPress Premium kind of nerve-wracking. You know, even if you set it up to be as stable as possible, it doesn't feel like the most secure thing to be doing with this press. Even with the regular press, I don't really use the inverted method a whole lot more ever since the flow control cap. Now, the flow control cap, as of right now, it's only available in plastic. I don't have any kind of inside track on this one, but I wonder if at some point a metal flow control cap will come along. As of right now, it doesn't. A couple other things you might want to consider as it comes to this press. Number one is definitely the cost. $150 is not chump change for sure. It does really feel like a premium piece of equipment, and it has a price tag to match that as well. Compared to a $40 regular AeroPress, this price may seem really high, but it's not as high as something like the Web Workshop's Bird, which is another brewer kind of functioning in a similar class. Styling is something else you may want to consider. You know, is this going to fit within the styling of your home? People seem to be divided on that one. So I'd love to know, what do you think? You know, do you love this? Do you not really care for the overall design? Make sure to drop your thoughts on that in the comments. And if you're somebody who is, you know, really sensitive about the materials that are, you know, coming into contact with your coffee, you know, there is a segment of people who they like the glass, they like the metal. That's fantastic, but they are not the hugest fan of actually paper filters. Some people prefer metal filters. They're not totally my vibe taste-wise, but AeroPress does make them. They're just not included. So that is going to be something that is extra. And the filters that are included, you know, people have said it's a smallish pack. You know, when it comes in the box, it's kind of jammed into the cap here. So, you know, at some point you're going to need to stock up on paper filters, even if you want to go in that direction. And overall, if you love the AeroPress, and you want a glass one or a glass and metal one, and you've been waiting for AeroPress to release that affordable, trusty sidekick, you can throw it in your bag, grab it and go anywhere, and it's just not made of plastic anymore, this is probably not that. This really strikes me as more, I'm gonna leave it at home, I'm going to polish it when I'm done using it, leave it up somewhere that it looks nice, and something that is not generally designed to be portable in the same way that this is. If that's something that you're looking for, I would probably just say go get a regular AeroPress. And if you're looking for something that is like that but is not plastic, I don't have a good answer for you. Now, here's the first question that my wife asked about this press as soon as she saw it. How easily is this thing gonna break? Like, you just look at it, it's double wall glass. How fragile is it actually? So I thought we can't do this video without actually finding this out. It is made of borosilicate glass, which is more durable than regular glass, but it is still glass. So I don't really know how this is gonna go, but I thought we would just start tipping it over. It's okay, I do have another one.
That's actually a little more fragile than I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's glass, so like it's gonna break. It took a couple knocks though. If you're curious, this is a quartz counter. Suffice to say, if you get one of these, if you have a porcelain sink or quartz countertops, tile floor, you're gonna wanna be careful. I don't think that's a surprise. Now, who is this actually for? I can see several different types of people that this could be a good fit for. Firstly, if you're looking for an easy to use, low cost, portable, rugged coffee brewer, I don't think that this is going to be for you. And if that is you, I would say just get the original. It's cheap, it works great. The coffee it brews is great. You'll probably have it for 10 years and AeroPress does sales all the time, so you could probably find it for less than 40 bucks. I think if you are, number one, looking to remove as much plastic from your world as possible and you like the way that the AeroPress works and you think it could be a great fit for you, then this press is definitely a good option. Or maybe you're just an AeroPress fan in general and they released this and you saw it and you loved it. It's premium and the vibe fits with you and you want to get it, then I think that's okay. You know it's going to produce basically the same cup of coffee of the AeroPress that you use already, and you just want a nicer one. And I think there's nothing wrong with that either. Does the AeroPress Premium offer a great experience with a price tag to match? I think it does. Is it for everybody? I don't think it is. And I think that's okay. If this video was helpful at all for you, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. It's the best way that you can support me making more of these review videos. Let me know what you think of the Premium in the comments, whether you think it's crazy or whether you think it's amazing. I hope your next cup of coffee is fantastic, and we'll see you next time.